Welcome to the Unexceptional Moms podcast. This is episode 15, and we're going to be talking about friendships. And basically, do you want to be my friend? My name is Ellen Stembo.
And I'm Erin Lorraine. So the things we're going to discuss about friendships today are the challenges of developing adult friendships when you have children with special needs, and then the blessings, because there are some great blessings of the friendships you develop when your children have special needs. And then we're going to discuss just how to develop those friendships and how to fight against isolation.
Absolutely. And when I joke about, do you want to be my friend? I actually did ask someone that I had just met, do you want to be my friend? I've asked a couple of people, so it probably sounds really desperate, but it just so happens that other people want to have friends too. So
desperate times call for desperate measures.
Yes. So it turned out that it was not that awkward to say to someone, do you want to be my friend?
Today I hunted down a lady in the parking lot of the hospital.
I saw that on Facebook, actually.
My computer. Yeah. So she had a daughter with Down syndrome, and they were walking by me, and I'm like, oh,
that's me.
Your daughter's beautiful. I have a daughter with Down syndrome too. And we got talking and found out we had mutual friends, connected on Facebook. So that was fun.
Which is not unusual.
That's the third friendship I've made in 3 different parking lots of 3 different hospitals.
I've never met anyone in the parking lot. And I apologize ahead of time because I'm a little bit sick, so you're going to hear me coughing. I can't stop it. So let's talk about the challenges, which I think just being an adult makes friendships a little bit more challenging.
Sure it does. Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in St. Louis, and then when we moved to Little Rock, I had to develop friendships as an adult, and that was very unique. Very unique.
It is. There's a lot of components. And then, once you have kids, when you have little kids, it can be very isolating as it is.
Sure it can.
When you have little kids.
Absolutely.
And sometimes even trying to get plugged into different mom groups and play date groups, it's just not enough. And then you have kids with disabilities, and then there are different challenges. So let's talk about those challenges. And some of them are physical. And
yes,
when I talk about physical challenges, I talked about accessibility and mobility for our kids. So there were so many times that moms groups would get together to have a play date, and it would be that there would be a gathering place, like let's say at the park, and the moms will all gather in one spot while the kids were playing. Well, that just did not work for us.
Right.
For me to go and participate in any type of activity involved me having to be with my kids so that I could help them in the playground equipment, or so that I could help them climb a ladder, or just the extra supervision. Because I did not have typical children, it required more from me that took me away from the other moms.
Right. And I can't just send Anya off to play with the kids, hoping that she won't bop one of them upside the head, or I can't do that. And going to another place is very hard for Oksana to maneuver in a setting that she's not completely comfortable and familiar with. And so she ends up getting frustrated because she can't move very well, and she ends up just sitting. And so there's a lot of challenges.
There are some of those physical challenges. I think some of them are emotional challenges too. And we've all had different things that have happened to us. But I think about when Nicole was born with Down syndrome, having someone who was a close friend say to me, you're being punished. This is a result of your sin. That's why you have a child with Down syndrome. Well, that's not going to be very good for the friendship, first of all.
No, you think?
And sometimes that, there are comments that are said, a little bit of judgment, there's things like that come across.
A couple of them that stand out to me. One is there have been times that I didn't know where I fit. So the moms with kids with CP didn't have the mental illness or didn't have the intellectual disability, and the moms with the kids with mental illness didn't have the CP and the intellectual disability, and the moms with the kids with, and so I think the dual diagnosis thing can be very challenging because it's hard to find where you really fit because your kid doesn't necessarily fit with their kids.
Yes. And I hear that quite a bit with the parents that have kids with Down syndrome and an autism diagnosis,
Yes,
that dual diagnosis,
exactly.
that they also find it very hard that you kind of belong in one group, but you don't really belong in that group either because of the extra challenges. I mean, the reality is that there are people who don't get your life.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned saying things that they say, but I would even say silence is very hard for me. So I have had a situation where I've had people ask me how things are going in my life. And these were people who don't have children with disabilities. And they were good friends of mine. And so I shared very openly and honestly about the struggles we were having, and I got met with, and then we changed the subject.
Yeah.
Because they just didn't know what to say. But I remember thinking, I don't fit here anymore.
Mm-hmm. I think Nicole was around a year old when I was talking to someone. And as we were talking, they expressed to me that they were very disappointed in me and how I handled her diagnosis, and that had really changed the way that they perceived me. Now, you have to remember, I was a pastor's wife, so they probably thought that I was not handling it in a holy enough way.
Yeah.
And I remember kind of feeling really surprised by that comment, especially from someone that I would have considered to be a friend, that for so long they had kind of looked at me in a negative way because they did not approve of how I handled her diagnosis. Granted, of course I could have handled her diagnosis better, but when you have a friend and when it comes to friendship, you would hope that someone is willing to understand or ask questions.
Right.
And not just assume something about you or your situation. And I always say that unless you walk in her shoes, you don't really understand what that life is like. And because of that, I try to give people a little bit of grace. But it's not always possible because at some point there could be an unwillingness to understand or try to connect.
Definitely.
So I'm going to cough. So say something, Erin.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Do you have any other challenges?
Well, we talked about where do we fit in. One thing I was going to point out is the lack of compassion. And it goes both ways. I think sometimes there's a lack of compassion for other people towards us and towards our situation and towards our understanding. And there's a lack of compassion to kind of give us a little bit of grace when we have to cancel maybe a plan, or when we have to backpedal on a plan that we have made, or when we have to say no, or that kind of situation, that we do need a little bit of compassion. But I think sometimes when it comes to friendship, we need to do that too.
Absolutely.
So I remember talking to my father-in-law one time, actually, and we were talking about the fact that when my daughter Nicole was born, I was so ignorant about disability, and I had so much to learn about disability attitudes. But I remember saying I had to get from A to Z really, really quickly.
Right.
It was like the crash course on disability, because I needed to be there for my kids, and I needed to be present, and I needed to educate people, and I needed to be an advocate, and I needed to kind of get out of the really hard and the period of time where for some parents would grieve a diagnosis. And as we were talking, I remember he looked at me and he said, I have to go through that too, because she's my granddaughter. The difference is you get to live with her, and that's something that you get to do every day, but I don't. So I only see her so often. So I feel like I have not been able to move from A to Z quickly like you have. It's taken longer. And I remember that was powerful for me because I felt like I lacked compassion towards my father-in-law sometimes and his understanding of disability. And I thought, if when my daughter was born, I had had all the expectations of being where I'm at today, it would have been so overwhelming for me because I wasn't there yet. I had to process my feelings. I had to go through that. And I try to remember that when I interact with other people, I can't expect them to be where I'm at, even a really good friend, because they don't live my life.
Absolutely.
Now, if they're not willing to learn and to understand and to grow, that's a different story. But I think a lot of people do. I just have to recognize that it's going to take them longer and it's going to be a slower process because it's not their life. And that's where, if I want people to show compassion towards me, I need to do that and extend a little bit of that compassion. Then yes, people are going to say stupid comments, and we had a podcast about that. We talked about when people say rude things, and they're going to say things that are insensitive. But is the intention to be insensitive? No.
Right.
Are they trying to be stupid? Well, no, I don't think so. I would say they're not. And that's where we get to extend the compassion and to recognize they're not where I'm at right now. So what can I do to show that compassion? And I don't say this to defend us as parents, but sometimes we fight the school system, and we fight doctors, and we fight the specialists, and a lot of what we do is sometimes fight for our kids that sometimes we forget to let our guard down, even around our friends, and that's the part of the compassion from our side.
One of my dearest friends doesn't have children with disabilities. She has 2 typical children, and she understands my kids better than so many people because she really values our friendship, and so she asks questions, and she'll say, "All right, this might be a stupid question," and I don't mind answering any question from her because I know the heart where it's coming from, and her desire to know my life like I know hers, so we can deepen our friendship. So there's great value in having that level of compassion when someone wants to seek to be your friend.
Right. Especially because I think we are all desperate for friends, and we all need friends.
Definitely.
And because I joked about that, I've asked people, do you want to be my friend? But one of them was at the doctor's office, our nurse, and she made a comment about Nina, who has cerebral palsy, that I thought only the mother of a child with a disability would make that comment. So I asked her, and I said, what's your connection to disability? And she said, well, my daughter has spina bifida. So that's when I said, oh, do you want to be my friend? And she agreed.
Well, good.
So, and I it's kind of and I remember thinking, and I said, I don't know, I don't want to do something that you're not supposed to do when you're at work, but let me give you my phone number so that you can call me. And hopefully we're going to get our girls together soon, but
good.
But that, there's that willingness to be open.
Yes.
Willing to be
someone in the parking lot at the hospital.
Yes. Being willing to be vulnerable and invite people in.
Yes.
And showing that we don't always have it together and that we need help and that sometimes life is just overwhelming. And here's the thing. We talk, because obviously this is a podcast about special needs parents, and we talk about being overwhelming and that, parenting kids with disabilities is hard. But let's just get down to the fact that parenting is really, really hard.
No matter what.
No matter.
Or not. And
no.
Every family has their struggles. It's just hard, and it's hard to make friends, and we're busy.
Yes. So just like we have struggles that are specific to our families because of special needs, they probably have a specific set of issues that they're dealing with that maybe are not typical to the average family. So sometimes if we can remember that and keep that, in mind, it can help. So the blessings, what are the blessings? Now I keep muting my microphone. I don't know if it's working because when I cough, okay, good. So if you hear the click, that's me. So you're not hearing me cough like crazy. So Erin, what are the blessings? Because there's blessings.
Well, you're a good example, right? I mean, really what it boils down to is some of my most wonderful and precious friendships are people who have children with disabilities that we connect on a different level because we understand things about each other that a lot of people don't. Yes. And it's amazing the people I have met and been connected with because I have children with special needs.
Absolutely. There is an instant connection. And like you said, you met people in the parking lot, but I consider myself a stalker. So when I do see someone with Down syndrome, I have to go and talk to them, to the point that if we're out and about with my family, if it's my husband or my kids, they look at me and they just ask, how long do you think it's going to take you? Because I have to go and talk to the families or, whoever it is. But it is true. I mean, in so many ways, the first time that I got an email from you, even before you guys adopted Oksana, I had no idea that I was emailing with my best friend, but
exactly.
But there is this connection that we have, and it's not unusual that it happens because it's part of human nature. You are drawn to people who live a life similar than yours.
Mm-hmm.
So if you went to a craft fair and maybe you were into quilting, most likely you would end up hanging out with the people that do the quilting.
Right.
Oh, you do beads, you do quilting. Oh, me too. And you have that instant connection. I think parenting is a little bit like that.
Mm-hmm.
You see that. You see the groups of adoptive parents. You see
Yes.
the groups of special needs parents. You see the groups of biracial families. I mean, you could go in all different directions and you naturally are drawn to people that you have similarities with.
And I'm just going to say that I think that parents of children with disabilities are some of the coolest people on earth.
I do too.
There's a compassion and an empathy and a love and a willingness to be vulnerable that I haven't found in a lot of other people. And I'm going to include mental illness in that as well. I feel like the friendships that I develop, they get deep very quick.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Not all of them, right? But every once in a while you get one that it goes deep fast because the shared experiences are just so unique sometimes.
And I think because it's rare sometimes to meet someone that you can connect with so much, you are more willing to be vulnerable, because I can think of times that I have just met someone and at some point in the conversation we're sharing something that requires tears. Not that requires tears,
right?
But that it brings out the tears because you are sharing something that's very personal and private and meaningful and such a part, of your life. And like you said, it's deep and it's different. It's not the same that if you go to the moms group and everybody's talking about things that you go, yeah, I can't believe that you're worried about that. And, coming over to my house, which is the sarcastic part of me sometimes, when it comes out, like, you just don't get what's hard. But I think it's true. Now, I will say, I don't agree with the saying that God only gives special children to special parents.
Right.
But I also would agree with you that the coolest parents people are in there. But I think it's because we have changed.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
If you had put us all together before we had our kids, we would not be the same group of people that we are today.
Absolutely. And I'm going to throw in Facebook in this because, there's nothing like a face-to-face friendship, right? Yeah. But the reality is that Facebook is it's a very good place to connect with people. And I feel like there are people, I can name a couple of people on Facebook who I feel like if we met face-to-face tomorrow, we would instantly be the best of friends because we've actually developed a very strong, intimate friendship through our shared experiences on Facebook. I actually had an experience today with a mom that I was able to say, I get where you are. I've literally been there. I'm here. You can vent. You can ask questions, whatever you need. And again, it's those shared experiences. But the lady that I grabbed in the parking lot today, we were talking and I had Oksana with me and I mentioned that she was adopted from Ukraine, and the lady said, I know someone who adopted a kid from Ukraine. In fact, she's adopted a number of children. Well, I thought, I bet I know this person. So I said, what's her name? And she told me, and I said, I know exactly who that is. In fact, my daughter was in her son's orphanage. So it was just kind of crazy, but Facebook.
It is. And the reality because we're so isolated. A lot of us are home. And the beauty of social media is that it does give us a way to connect.
It does.
That it doesn't take us outside of our home.
Right.
And you can have your friends in your computer. And it sounds crazy, but there is a validity to that. And nothing is as great as a face-to-face. And I think
that can't be your whole friendship base.
Right. But. And I think that's what I love about the course that I teach, the Living Intentionally course. One of the things that I love to do is that we actually get together and we have video chats. Mm-hmm. So we have gotten to know each other in our private Facebook group, but actually seeing each other is really powerful. And you feel like you were actually almost in the same room. You can't maybe hug each other and share a coffee, but there's still that connection. And I have met people online and we end up
meeting
talking
in person.
I mean, you and I, it went from emails to I'll call you to do you want to come over to our home?
Do you want to come spend a week with us?
Yes.
I don't know you, but come spend a week with us.
And it just so happened that our whole families clicked right away. And
I still remember running out in the park or in the driveway and hugging you. And the first thing you said to me was, "You're small."
Yeah. Because I'm used to being the smallest person in a group of people. And I thought there's finally someone that's tinier than me. I just picture you being taller than me. That's it.
Yeah. Sorry.
Erin is one of the few people that I'm taller than. So you can, when you see us together, we're pretty short and petite. So, yes. And actually, one of the first things that we did, not that time when your family came over to be with my family, do you remember we went to Monkey Joe's?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The bouncy place. Yeah. And I had been to Monkey Joe's with other people before. And I remember feeling like that was the best outing I've had with friends to Monkey Joe's, because I was not the only parent in this lights and bouncing, because you were doing that too.
I have to.
Right. And it was really fun. And there's something about hanging out with people who live the same life. We just talked about the Johnny and Friends family retreats last week. And that's kind of what it boils down to, that you are surrounded by people who get your life, that live your life and understand. And if anything happens, nobody is going to go,
right.
And they're not going to say, oh, they should do better with discipline because they get it. Or, oh, they do so much for their kid. Or, oh, they make their kid do so much. Poor child. Whatever other people could assume when they don't live our life. You don't have to worry about those things. So I think we would agree that one of the biggest blessings from this journey are the friendships.
Absolutely.
I mean, of course, it's our children, but the friendships that develop from our kids is pretty incredible. So what can we do to develop friendships?
Silence, crickets.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So one thing I think is we have to be intentional. It doesn't come easy. So what does that look like? Like for me, it is so much easier for me to have people in my own house. And it's really hard for me because that means I have to have a decent looking house. And
you don't.
I know.
You don't.
Yeah, I know. It's challenging, but and I think I've said this before, we have a small group at church and they've been coming over to my house. And when they leave, I am so blessed by it and so glad I did it. But sometimes taking the step is harder. I have to remind myself constantly that I know I will be so glad I did it in the end. I was just actually talking to Jillian about this the other day, how just sometimes taking the step is the hardest part.
It can be. It really can. I think it's being intentional, but sometimes it means initiating as well.
Yeah.
And, I have a good friend here in town, and a couple of years ago, she sent me an email and she said, do you actually want to be my friend or not? Because I'm the one who's always asking you to do things. I am the one that's always calling. I'm the one who's always emailing. If I don't get you, you don't get back to me. So I have to call again. Do you want to be my friend or not? And to me, I was very thankful that she felt, first of all, that she could confront me about it.
Mm-hmm.
and that she could say something. And I was very thankful that she valued our friendship enough to say something and not just let it fizzle, because she could have stopped calling.
Right.
And that would have been it. And it really helped me to recognize that I can make a lot of excuses, but ultimately, I also get a role to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it can be more challenging for me to initiate the friendship, but having kids with disabilities does not excuse me from being a good friend. And it does not excuse me from taking that initiative once in a while. And I think she did me a huge favor, or she really made me think about the friendships. And she really made me think about, okay, what kind of friend do I want to be? Because I can't say, oh, I don't have any friends and it's so hard, if I haven't initiated and I haven't put my weight, or done my part to keep those friendships. So we got together. I apologized. I invited her out, and hopefully I do a little bit better. There are people that it's so easy for me to initiate. I mean, I can text you 5 times a day, call you all times, but we have that friendship, and you don't always have that friendship with everybody.
Right.
But sometimes it's just that call. And even to say, I don't have a lot of time, but I was just thinking about you. I'm on my way to pick up the kids, so I really just have 5 minutes. How are you? Could we get together?
So my example of this is that friend I told you about who does not have children with disabilities, but is so precious to me. During a really, really hard time in my life, I literally did not have it in me to hold up my end of a friendship. And so I would text her and say, don't give up on me. I just need some time. And I was just open and honest with her. And she loved me through the whole thing. And, we're still great friends. But
I think that made a difference, Erin, because if you had never said anything, if you had not even
she might have thought,
she doesn't want to be my friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she was compassionate enough and loving enough to say, okay, I will not give up on her. This is a hard time.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. So we talked about being flexible. We have to be willing to be flexible.
Well, I'll give you an example of that. So I said, I love having people at my house. It's just so much easier for my girls, right? Oksana knows how to maneuver. I can keep my eye on Anya. We know our space. So I was talking to Jillian, and Jillian said, it's so much easier to have people at my house, right? So that's when you go, we're going to your house, right? Because I will make it work. Where we are, we're going to be flexible because I value that and I want this friendship. So we're going to make that happen. I don't mind. I don't mind that, but we have to be willing to be flexible.
And hopefully if your friends are friends that have kids with disabilities, they're also willing to be flexible too.
Yeah.
And if anything happens, it's not weird or different. It's something that maybe they're used to. But even with friends who don't have kids with disabilities, sometimes we also have to be flexible, because I don't want to be the friend that always gets her way.
Of course.
I don't want to be the friend that's always taking, always demanding, always that things are always hard. I want to be a friend that it gives as much as I take, because that's a true friendship, right?
Of course.
Of course, there are periods of time where one friend is going to be more needy than the other, but we need to be able to do that for other friends as well. And it's a good thing to remember. I am highly empathic, and I don't know if that's considered a spiritual gift, but I really care about people, and I like to know about their stories, and I really care to know where they're at emotionally and how they're doing with their emotions, in their marriage, whatever it is. And hopefully I communicate that when I get together with friends, that it's not just about my life and the things that are hard, but I really care about what's going on in your life and the things that are hard for you too. And it might be different. Your heart is probably different than my heart.
And it's still hard.
Yes.
Yes.
And sometimes that's nice. It's nice that their heart is not the same as mine because I've got enough of my kind of heart.
Yes.
And then I can just support you and care about your heart, and the other way.
Yes. Something else that, and you know, this isn't going to work for everyone in every season of life, but quite frequently, I utilize that time when my girls are in school, because sometimes that is, for me, the best way to develop friendships.
Yes.
Because I don't have to chase anyone down or be in a bounce house while the other mom is over in that bounce house over there. I can really complete a sentence, and we can sit and talk and get to know each other. And so sometimes I just have to find those times when I don't have the kids around to go develop those friendships.
Yep. I do that too. Lunch dates with friends. Or even that's the time that I can pick up the phone and nobody's going to interrupt me.
Right. And that might mean laundry doesn't get done, or it might mean, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But again, it's being intentional and flexible and initiating and being willing to put something into the time needed to develop those friendships.
The guy who wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Families, mm-hmm. Covey, I think that's his name. Idea. Anyway, I'll think about that later. Anyway, I think he's the guy that talks about how we all kind of have a bank account of our emotions. And if you think about a bank account, when you make a deposit, you're in the positive numbers. And as you withdraw, like in a bank account, right. You withdraw. The problem is when we withdraw from more than what we have. So we're not even at a zero, we're below. And he talks about how often we function with a deficit.
Oh, yeah.
We can't function with a deficit. So as you talk about, the laundry and all of that, the way sometimes that we make deposits is by doing things that give us life, but having meaningful connections with other people as well. That's not going to be our children because we're parenting our kids. And as great as it is to connect with our husbands, and
that needs to happen too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Friendships are very important. And mm-hmm. sometimes we do need those friendships to make those deposits so that we can be energized, so that we can not feel so isolated, so that we can feel like we have this team. I talk about the sisterhood of the special needs moms, but just the sisterhood of friends, of women that can come along our side and do life with us.
Because I like that deposit analogy.
Yes.
Because I think most people listening to this, whether you have children with special needs or not, can relate to living in the deficit. I feel like I spent a good number of years in the deficit.
Yep.
And really this year I've made a commitment to do more deposits. Mm-hmm. And that's something I'm really working on, whether it's exercising or developing a friendship or getting a massage or, and just trying not to constantly be living in the deficit, because I always have been, always.
Mm-hmm. And I do think the guy's name is Stephen Covey, and I'm going to correct myself in the blog post if that was not right. But it is true, and that's why it's so important to find things that give us life, to find, if we're married, to be connecting with our husbands. Mm-hmm. Health-wise, I'm huge on our physical health as well. And then there's the friendship piece. So.
Yep. So you mean the 5,000 Swedish fish I ate today probably wasn't so good?
Probably not. Did you see Nina wanted to make a video today because she loves to cook?
I saw, but I didn't get to watch it.
Yes, because we wanted spaghetti, and I can't just do the jar of spaghetti.
Yeah.
I have to add veggies to it. So we had a video of how we make it healthy.
Cool.
As opposed to your Swedish fish. And then the kids asked for ice cream, and I said, sugar feeds disease. You either feed disease or you fight disease. We're fighting disease with our spaghetti sauce.
I used to be just like you, and now I'm addicted to sugar. So
most people are.
You know what, though? The Swedish fish bag says 0 fat. So
yeah, but it's still sugar. You're feeding disease, Erin. Oh, goodness. We need to have a conversation.
happy. My disease is happy.
No. Well, yes, your disease is happy, but Erin is not going to be happy. Okay, so anything else to add? We talked about challenges, the blessings, and maybe developing friendships. There is no freebie this time because do you want to be our friend?
There!
You're freebie. We want you to be our friend. And you can be a great friend by leaving us a review on iTunes.
Yes! Or you can find us on Facebook. But I'm going to tell you right now, if I don't know who you are, I won't accept your friend request. So you're going to have to tell me who you are.
Which you will find me. I have a page. And if you have any messages that you want to send to Erin and I, you can email me or send a message to me, and I always forward those to Erin as well. If you have any ideas or anything that you want us to cover in the podcast, we have loved getting your ideas, and we've gotten some great podcasts from those.
And we've got a lot coming up that have been requests. So
yes.
Yeah.
And next week, I'm really excited for next week.
Me too.
Do you want to tell them, Erin?
Jillian Marchenko is going to come on. Jillian has written 2 memoirs. The first one is Sunshine Down, and it's about her experience really coping with the diagnosis of Down syndrome and her daughter Polly. And then the other one is called Still Life, and it's about her life with major depressive disorder. So she's going to come on and talk to us about mental health in parents, right? Specifically parents of children with special needs.
Yes. So any questions that you have, we are recording that on Friday. So you have a few days if you want to send questions for us, if you want to send questions for Jillian. We're just going to have a very open and honest talk about mental health issues in special needs parents. And Jillian is phenomenal. She talks and shares also very openly and honestly. She does. And oftentimes we don't like to talk about that kind of thing, but it's so important that we talk about it because there's research that shows that we are more likely to have mental health issues.
Right.
So we're going to be talking about that. I'm really, really excited. If you have not read her book, it's called Still Life. You can find it on Amazon.
Maybe you need to link to it. Well, we definitely will next week anyway.
Yes, we will next week. So that's it for now.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.